We're live. Hopefully good sound this time, right?
It feels
Look at this out.
it feels so good.
Using so those of you that watch the video afterwards, you kind of get the hidden episode.
That's That's reasonable. It's so good, guys. Once it hits your lips, it's so good. Testing normal is back on a Sunday morning. A nice,
I wouldn't.
cool Sunday morning, I might add.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever been on a Sunday morning. We're back on a Sunday. I guess we're
Yeah.
back in general.
We've definitely, well, we used to do Sunday evenings was our main
It's true.
go-to, right? But
It is
Sunday
true.
morning it is today. Guys, welcome back to Testing Normal. We're on episode 138. 138.
It's kind of wild.
That's kind of wild. That's a lot
We
more
probably-
than most people.
We probably have a lot more if we didn't have like a lot of family and job things that happen that like, get in the
Yeah.
way of us goofing off online.
This is exactly it. This is goofing off, and we're loving it. Oh man. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. If you missed us the last time, Jordan was saying that we didn't post the audio for the last one. We just had it on video because the sound quality was struggling.
And
but
just non-existent in a lot of spots.
and
So,
non-existent lost spots, exactly. But
we're here now.
yeah, we're here now. We're here. We're strong. We're ready to go. Somebody just asked me, Jordan, if let me see here. If you could turn your sound up a little bit. They said
My sound.
yeah,
I
your
can do
sound.
that.
Okay, so guys, we're gonna start the day off with some fantastic shower thoughts. Oh no.
Okay, I'm up a little bit.
Oh no. Okay,
What?
let me know, guys, if Jordan sounds a little better, if he needs to go a little higher. All right, so I'm gonna throw out the first shower thought here for y'all, and here it is. The terms buck and doe are both terms for a deer,
It's true.
but also buck and doe are both terms for money.
Yes, spelled slightly different on the
Kind of
second one.
interesting on the doe for sure, but
Yeah.
kind of interesting, right? And
Yeah.
on that same note with spelling, I just need to voice some frustration that's kind of been pinning up, and I just need to let it out because it's probably not healthy to just have it sitting in there,
Oh,
you
no,
know.
no, yeah, totally.
But with the English language, I know there's a lot of weird spelling of words that probably aren't grammatically consistent, but it really frustrates me and annoys me that the word fridge is spelled with a D. And
Well,
then
you're just not saying it right. There's a hard D in
friddage. But then
Whenever I say friddage,
whenever
that's how I say it.
I always say, hey, do you have a KitchenAid friddage?
Exactly. Yeah.
But then the word refrigerator has no D in it. Frustrating.
Well,
That's all I'll say.
that's true.
It's
That
frustrating
is
to me.
weird. I wonder where
Yeah.
that comes from. It's probably the dang English. That's why
It's
we
madness.
get these O's and U's and like color
Yeah,
versus color.
right.
Yeah.
Right. It's chaos. That's all.
They think they know better and they just don't. And I'm sure our friend Jono would have something to say about that, like the correct way to say and do things. But theirs is even more confusing in my mind.
Yeah,
I
they
don't
got some.
I
They got
heard
some
I heard
score.
I heard an interesting thing the other day about the English language, and that was someone said that English is one of the hardest languages to learn, not necessarily because of the spelling, but just because of the way that our language kind of comes from a lot of different places. But also, and I found this interesting, it makes it harder for those of us that speak English as a first language to learn other languages because it's so much different for us to go to them.
That makes sense.
I'd never thought of it in that direction. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you know what? That is kind of weird because whenever you're like, I don't know, I'm like you. I'm sure we both took some Spanish. It's kind of required in a lot of places, and you're always trying to look for like the exact like, how do I translate this word? But it's actually like kind of thought, and some things are backwards in your head, and you just don't think like that. Although one thing I thought about this last week actually. I do like that they put upside down question marks and exclamation marks at the beginning of those sentences, because otherwise I feel like when I'm like, you read a kid's book and you're like, oh, I was supposed to be excited for that whole sentence, and you're just excited for like the last two words.
Great point. That's actually a great observation, Jordan. That's very true. I I think that is a more logical approach to to grammar. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. We should just start it. We should just start writing that way
S-
and just take it. I mean, we take everything else.
In our own
We take,
English
we don't have our own
interpretations.
foods. We don't like, the only thing that we claim as our own food is like American cheese. And we're so proud of it that we even call it American cheese in
Well,
America.
cheeseburgers, right? I think cheeseburgers are a
But I mean,
precedent.
like having our name in it. So like we say Canadian bacon,
Oh,
but
I
Canada
gotcha.
doesn't say that there.
Yeah,
They
right, right,
they're
right,
not
right.
so proud of it
American
that they call it that, and it's not even the
cheese,
same
American
thing.
cheese. Yeah, we really don't have any other
And
foods that start with American, do
and in
we?
France they just call it bread. They don't call it
American,
French bread.
American. Yeah, I don't think we have any American food that terminology other
Do
than
you think in
American
Poland
cheese.
they call it Polish sausage or just sausage?
They probably
Like
don't even call it sausage,
that's true.
honestly.
Yeah, well no, that's what I mean, but they probably don't put Polish in front of it either.
Right,
Like,
right.
yeah.
True, 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 true.
But the one gross fake thing that we claim is cheese that's not even really cheese. Kraft kind of says sometimes they put real milk in it, but I doubt it.
Doubt
I
it.
doubt it.
It's soy milk. It's all soy milk.
Yeah.
All right, hit me.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Right. We're on shower thoughts. That took us down. That took me down a weird road. Only the poorest rich people fly in first class.
True. There's levels, right? There's levels to that game.
Yeah. Some people are like, first class, man, flying with everyone else. I need my own plane.
I've thought about this. I thought about how ironic it is flying in a plane where you pay maybe, and in some cases it's extremely, especially long flights, extremely
Yeah.
convenient to have longer, more legroom. But it's interesting to pay thousands of dollars for a small confined area where
Right.
if you were in your normal home, it wouldn't be that much of a luxury at all. Like it'd be considered like very non-luxurious to be
Except
sitting
people
in
do
this
pay for
chair.
that. I mean, there are people that have bigger homes because they
No, but
think
I'm
they
saying
need
like
more space.
to pay for like a square foot area for a three and a
That's
half
true.
foot area or 4 foot area, like you're paying $5,000 for a 5 or 4 foot area with eating, plastic wrapped food. It's like that's not that luxurious, but it also is like such a difference between economy and first class. It's kind of an
Yeah, I
interesting
do think it's funny because
concept.
they're at the front of the plane, and it makes sense, except in an accident situation, because you pay a lot more to be the first people that hit the mountain. Like, whereas, like, a lot of times the people that survive those are the ones that paid the cheapest and are back next to the smelly bathrooms. And like, what survives in a plane? The black box, which maybe they should just make the plane out of a black box.
Mm.
But the only thing left is the tail. And so the people that paid the least amount are actually technically like stand the highest chance of survival.
Yeah, they just need to put seats in the tail. There you go.
On
Okay.
the tail.
Or in the tail, yeah. Okay, so let's see here. Did you do a shower thought just now?
Yeah. Only
Okay.
the poorest. We just keep jumping off because
I
we're like, oh, that's a
know.
good thought. It's fine. This is
So,
class.
a 500-page book really only has 250 pages in it.
It's true.
It's kind of
That
interesting.
also, I didn't realize that we had a doubled up one, so that was one of
Oh,
mine too.
oh, okay.
It's totally fine. I don't care.
Hit me.
Creating a national holiday for essential workers would not give essential workers a day off.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes, very true.
But we could still make one.
We still make one, yeah. So this is something that I've encountered more and more lately. USB ports are slowly becoming the international wall plug. I'm seeing a lot of plugins that have like European outlets. Like if you're in another country, they
Mhm.
have their outlets, but they also we're seeing more and more of those little side next to their plugin, a USB plugin. And it's
Yeah.
interesting and it's kind of cool that we're having this universal format for charging now.
Just
That's
mobile
becoming more and more
devices, because it's
common.
so limited in how much. So until we move to USB C,
Hmm.
if that was the universal plug, that can carry a lot more current. So its
Mm.
limit is like 100 watts, and USB is like way less. Like they can do like Like the most I've seen is like 3 amps, whereas 100 watts is a ton more than that. But in order to charge like a laptop like decently, you'd need something with a lot higher current.
Yeah, other than a lap, well, I mean, I think it's such a standard. Like the majority of people, well, I'd say more probably people that don't require a hair dryer. Um, but other than a laptop, majority of things that people are trying to charge when they're in a hotel are cell phones. Probably 90% of the
Right.
cases.
Well, although I've run into this too, I just did when I flew to Texas a few weeks ago. Like you, the plug that's on a plane is
Hmm.
USB-C, but every plug that now companies are giving you in the box for your phone
Hmm.
are they're not USB-A. So the USB-A is the big rectangle one.
Oh, right,
They're giving USB-C now. So then it's like
right.
I'm hunting around for a cable to fit the universal plug. But I think it's by 2024 or 28, something like that. Um, there's going to be a requirement in Europe that phones charge with USB-C.
Well, I'm surprised that iPhones haven't transitioned to USB-C yet.
Well, and see, that's what everyone's saying is that this could be the year, this one or the next iteration, because they'll have to comply by the EU saying that all mobile devices must charge with this new standard, which is kind of weird because it could change.
Mm,
Like,
right.
I'm not sure I'm a big fan of that. I am a big fan of Apple going to USB-C because most everything is. So then, and their iPads are now too. So they kind of have like half and half.
Right,
Um,
their iPads are, yeah. And what will be interesting too, if USB-C becomes a standard and they move away from, what is it currently on iPhones? What is that?
it's
What's that
Lightning.
port? Lightning. So
Yeah.
Lightning port. If everything moves to USB-C, then it'll be interesting to see what happens with the wireless charging that we have somewhat out and about right now as well. If that becomes stronger or a higher
There's
input.
limitations and there's a ton of loss in that. I use it all the time, wireless, and it's gotten a lot faster. It's
Hmm.
still not as quick as plugging in. And I understand, I mean, there's a great argument for why Apple did Lightning in the beginning, and that was because at the time the standard was like USB micro or USB mini, and it didn't have as high a current and it also didn't have as many outputs. So
Mm,
they could do a lot more with Lightning. So they basically created a USB-C type, flip the plug over, run it anyway, runs sound out, runs
right,
a
which
lot
is
more
nice.
power, all, and it can run peripherals, USB through it, and everything all at the same time. So they were kind of ahead of their time, but they created their own port for it. And now USB C kind of captures that. And I wish that they would go to it. And I think they will eventually. They're going to be forced to, or they'll do something dumb like we're just going to provide adapters to everyone. And that's what they've done in Europe so far to kind of get around that.
Mm.
But it's kind of dumb.
Yeah, I think eventually people will phase into, actually, it will be interesting to see this, but I predict, now granted, I know there's limitations to this, but I
Mm-hmm.
do predict in the future wireless charging will become more commonplace, and not even wireless charging where you necessarily put it on a pad, but some type of wireless charging where you don't actually require to have it on a specific setting for something like cell phones. Maybe not
And
for
so they're
like,
like charging in your house because you have wireless charging
because
there.
you're close enough to the area
You
of
know,
charger.
there's a lot of argument because there's been a lot of cases now with even like our mobile. There was one I was reading the other day. It was really interesting. I don't have a link for this. It just is coming up because we're talking about it. But talking about like waves that are flying through. Like I used to make this
Hmm.
joke with a friend of mine where we used to work at a mobile carrier that if we could see the packets flying around, we'd be ducking everywhere because there's so
Hmm.
many Wi-Fi and cell phone and everything. If we could see that with our eyes, we would be terrified. But there was a case where a uh, it was a dairy that actually got a 5G tower removed from near their property because their milk production had gone down by like over 20%. And
Fascinating.
they were having like issues with livestock and stuff, and they were able to prove it in a case and get it removed from their area, and it went back. So like
Wait,
we
what
don't
went back? The milk
the
production came
the
back?
milk production came back, and they were able to recover what they had done. And this is like a very small snippet reading through the
Hmm.
case, but they won and it was removed. So there's something to that. There's something to that. Those waves can disturb biology in some way. We still don't know, but I can't imagine what charging would do. But also, charging through the air, if we're talking about energy efficiency, you lose a lot because they tested this with charging things from a satellite and stuff. And it's like over 90% of the energy is lost in
Right.
transferring it that way. So
Right.
when you do, like, I even have one here. I don't know if I can get it on camera, but like I have this wireless charger on the phone, but
Mhm.
there's a coil that's right on the other side of this that's interacting with that. So there's not as much loss because it's so close and it's
Mhm.
interacting with the coil that's inside the phone.
So
So
it's
that,
magnetic.
yeah, that one's magnetic. The magnets have nothing to do with the coils. They just keep the coils next to each other. Whereas the old ones, if you didn't quite get it right, then the phone wouldn't. And
Mhm.
also the thing that it posed was is a lot of people want to use their device while it's charging, right?
Right. Right.
So if you don't have that magnet on there, you're having to like specially like, I mean, I've done it. You like kind of hold it in the place to charge it. Whereas this is like, I mean, it's on here and then sticks on its own. So
Yeah,
I see
it's
that
interesting.
being more of a viable
Was it
option.
it was I think it was Tesla. I think it was Nikola Tesla that was working on the wireless charging front for a while. Um, and
Yeah.
I can't remember what method he was using, but basically, it's all to a degree, it's all vibrations, and
Well, I mean, it's
there's
waves.
that's
Everything.
waves. Well, right,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's vibrations, right? And so it's just a frequency that connects that vibration and then facilitates the charging. But I do think in the future, whether it's healthy, time will tell. And even with this, honestly, like Wi-Fi, who's to say 5G, like you were saying, won't have
Yeah.
ramifications.
Well, there's been a
Um,
lot of studies on like Wi-Fi in homes disturbing sleep, and there's a lot of clout to it. I mean, there's arguments on both sides of it, but there's been
well,
people that
there's
have done small experiments, and
have you heard of the
it's
Liver King?
no.
The Liver King. So he's this guy. He's kind of like a social kind of like a social fad or social media fad guy. I can't remember how you say that, but
Yeah, yeah.
he he's just a super yoked, like really big dude, and he proclaims the benefits of only eating. He's basically an only meat eater, right? But
Like Jordan Peterson.
well, but physically completely the opposite. Like Jordan
Yes. Yeah.
Peterson looks like a withered, you know, pretzel, but or not even pretzel, celery.
I don't think he
Um,
body builds though, so you'd have to bodybuild at
Yeah,
the same
this
time.
guy though is just like absurdly yoked. He proclaims he doesn't use any steroids, anything like that, which I don't really believe. If you got to look
He
him up.
probably at the very minimum he uses TRT.
You got to look him up, dude. Um, but he majority of his meat comes from liver, like
Oh my
outside of
gosh,
other
he
meats.
is.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. But he has like all these like fitness programs on all these different things. But he refuses to sleep in any room that has that doesn't have like basically a Faraday cage, like that doesn't have you
Yeah.
know block out Wi-Fi curtains, all these like special like things to prevent any type of extra signal coming into his room because he says he's essentially not able to sleep unless he has all these mm, protections. Yeah, there he is.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just pulled him
And
up.
he never wears a shirt. That's his shtick. He doesn't wear a shirt. Yeah, and I'm not sure he might. I'm not sure if he wears shoes. I think he wears
Okay,
shoes, but I can't recall.
here's the question though. If you look like that, would you want to wear a shirt? No shirt's gonna fit you. Like, let's be real.
Well, you could wear some
Like,
extra large, but also that's his brand. And think
he'd
about
have to
how
wear a vest
yeah,
just to
how
fit
hard
his
does that guy
arms.
work to
Oh,
look like that, right?
yeah. I mean,
So
props to him. He's
yeah, he's yoke. He's yoke.
yeah.
I love like anytime I have so my kids and I we love watching Survivor together. And there was this contestant on Survivor and he looked kind of like that Liver King guy, just like super yoke, big dude, super fit
Yeah.
and probably like, 150 pounds more than me. But he was um competing and I was talking to my son. I'm like, man, Knox, look how much that guy looks like daddy. Doesn't he look so much like daddy? And Knox, he's like, no, dad, you look like this guy. And he pointed to this guy and he was like this like 60-year-old, really tiny Asian guy that was like
Oh my
not
gosh.
in good shape and like looked kind of emaciated. And I was like, what? Knox, no, Daddy does not look like that. Daddy's the big, super strong guy, right? And he's like, no, Daddy, I think you look more like this guy. I'm like, stop
Yeah.
it. It was
Kids'
so funny.
honesty will never cease to humble you.
It was
Um,
hilarious. I was cracking up.
yeah.
All right, I have
Yes.
one more shower thought. I just
Okay.
wanted to throw it out there. If you think about it, we actually pay more for less calories and less for more calories when we go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Exhibit Zevia. Zevia costs more than a drink that has, and Zevia has no calories,
Right.
but it's healthier than a drink that has, 500 calories and
Yeah.
is
I think
$4 cheaper.
it just goes to show like you look at like vegetables too. Like a lot of times
Mhm.
we'll pay more for that. We're paying more for nutrients. Like calories is just I mean, it's just our way of measuring energy, right?
Yeah. Yep. Input, output, baby. Input, output. Did you have any more shower thoughts, or
No,
you're done?
no, because one of mine got used up because I was a
Okay.
dummy and didn't check yours. So,
Okay, that's right. No worries.
so,
Okay, so a
but
couple things
yeah, I was gonna
I
say, let's
wanted
do a couple things
to.
before we talk about
Yeah. So obviously this week
this
we know there was
case.
some big political moves, right? Some big stuff going down with the Supreme Court. Um, and we're going to touch on a little bit of that, but before we do, I wanted to kind of go over some crazy things that I was reading about this week that I thought was interesting. First of all, there was a recent, well, not incredibly recent, but within this past several years, discovery that's just kind of making rounds now because it's been verified with certain types of genome and DNA testing.
Mm-hmm.
But they found the world's largest bacterium in the Caribbean mangrove swamp. This bacteria is so large that you actually can see it with the naked eye.
Oh, whoa! I was gonna say,
It's
so what's the difference like
insane.
between what's the difference between bacterium and bacteria? Is there a difference,
No,
or
it's just the way of that.
is the
Uh,
way the word sounds? It sounds like it's referring to like a set of or
no,
like a
no,
grouping.
individual
It almost
bacterium.
sounds like a terrarium for bacteria.
Kind of, yeah. Um, so what a bacteria is a large group of unicellular microorganisms that have cell walls,
Mm-hmm.
but they lack an organized nucleus,
Okay.
and they typically cause disease. Um, so, but what's crazy about this bacteria? It was large enough to be seen by the naked eye, which is insane.
Yeah.
And they say, so I had the size of it that I could explain to you. So a normal bacteria ranges between 1 to 5 micrometers long. This species was around 10,000 micrometers
Whoa.
long. So 4/10 of an 4/10 of an inch. So basically like close to a centimeter long, which is
Right.
insane, and about the thickness of an eyelash.
I wonder at what point can you see it? Like how many
Mm.
micrometers would it
Good
have to
question.
be before you can
Yeah.
see it?
So like an eyelash, right, is pretty easy to see, and that was the thickness of it. So
Okay.
probably because you can't see 1 to 5 micrometers long, obviously, but
No.
10,000. So yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. That's a great question. I'm not sure. But what's interesting about
You can
this,
see 10,000. I bet you could see half that.
right? Like, could you see half an eyelash?
Yeah. It'd be pretty
Right.
it'd be like one of those like wisp I mean, like I wonder like how big a spider web is cuz like sometimes you can see it, the light has
Hmm.
to be right. Um if there's a lot of it, it's like double tripled up, but like one floating through the air, you can kind of see it. And then there's those really really irritating hairs that you're like can't really find,
Hmm.
but you can
Hmm.
feel it.
Totally. In your eyeball. It's like I
Yeah.
can't see anything, but I feel it.
Yes.
But with this,
I knew someone that an eyelash flew out and then came in and went, there's a duct on your eye at the
Oh yeah,
bottom and top,
yeah,
it
yeah,
went into the top duct, like it speared it.
yeah. Into the duct. Yeah, I've had a couple cases where I've taken out eyelashes from ducts. If they're sticking out, you can see them usually.
Right.
Um, But so what's interesting about they did mapping of the genome of this bacteria, and they found that it actually had lost it lost the essential genes
Hmm.
for cell division. So they said like, oh, because it doesn't have that cell division, and it had more than normal number of genes for responsible for cell elongation. So
Right.
basically, like this evolved into a bacteria that didn't replicate as fast, right, and didn't
Hmm.
divide, but it continued to grow, and which probably explains why it became such a large bacteria.
Oh, there's a
Um,
picture of it here.
yeah, I think there is on there.
Yeah,
It
look at
almost
that.
kind of looks like
It looks like a hair or a
or like a
worm or
parasite, right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Kind of looks like a parasite. Yeah, kind of
That's
interesting though. I
wild.
thought it was kind of cool to think about a
K-
bacteria
So
that large has been
it's
discovered.
it's really cool, and it was found in where was it found? It was found in a mangrove
Caribbean
swamp.
mangrove. Yeah.
So, um, that's kind of interesting. Someone actually found it. Like I know you can see it, but
Hmm.
like someone had to actually find it.
Yeah. So it was a uh, uh, not a botanist. It was a uh, microbiologist. He was just exploring this, or biologist, marine biologist, and he was walking around looking for interesting things in this mangrove, and he saw this large piece of what looked like he thought I think essentially that it was like a parasite or something. So he wanted to evaluate it, and then after breaking it down and looking under the scope, he said, "No, holy cow, this isn't a parasite. It's a bacteria."
Yeah, so it's kind of by accident. It wasn't
Yeah,
like he was like.
exactly.
It's still pretty amazing. Like it's kind of like finding a needle in a stack of needles. Like
Right.
it's, um, yeah.
So, okay, the last article I wanted to hit on because um, well, actually, I have a couple more, but this is one that I wanted to press on.
Mhm.
Interesting kind of trend that I've never heard of before. We've we have observed difficulties with our economy, obviously with inflation lately, and we've observed different types of cryptocurrencies, different types of format of payments when compared to like our normal fiat currency.
Mhm.
But this is an interesting new type of uh, process for our economy. It's called a time-based economy. So time-based, basically future of work. So what I didn't know about, there's these things called time banks, and there's these companies that created time banks, and you can join. It's kind of like an app or an exchange. It's like a time exchange. And what
Mhm.
I like about it, and I think it's pretty cool, is basically what they're saying is people pretty much have to agree that everyone's time is valued equally. Whether you're a lawyer, whether you're an economist, whether you're a physician, whether you're a dog walker, whether you're an architect, whether you're a general contractor, like everybody has a finite amount of time. It doesn't matter who you are. My time,
Right.
my life is just as valuable as your life, right?
Right.
So honoring that time and that value is kind of a cool concept. And with these time banks, what they do is you essentially say, hey, you put on there, like, this is a service that I provide. Like, I provide dog walking, I provide architectural instructions, or I provide lawn mowing services. And then you can exchange time with other people. If they say, hey, I see you're offering this service, I will provide you an hour of this service in
Mhm.
exchange. And then you can rate, like kind of like Uber, you can rate the service they provided. You can show how much time you did that certain task for them, and then how much they then need to provide your service for. And it was kind of a cool thing because basically it eliminates the fiat concept. Like, you're not actually giving money to that
Mhm.
individual, and it kind of gives another way of getting services done, because maybe back in the 1800s, there was more of bartering that was done with, hey, you take care of
That's what I was gonna
my
say. It just
dog.
sounds to me a lot like bartering. Although
Right.
here's a
But
tip to
without like
y'all
necessarily the
is
goods,
that
without having
if you
goods.
use the term barter, it's a taxable event.
Right.
If you use the word trade, it's not.
Yeah, and they're using time exchange. I'm
Yeah.
giving my time to you. And I was like, that is really cool. Like
Yeah, I
I
mean
can see that benefit.
it's kind of what we do now, except that so I where I would push back a little bit is I
Mhm.
100% agree with you that everyone's life is we are all valuable. We're
Mhm.
all worth the same. The difference is that there are certain skills
Mhm.
that buy you time, and so the amount of those skills are worth they create more either efficiency or they shorten time. So say
Mhm.
like for instance, you're paying for. I saw a story the other day where a guy was like, "Hey, I'll fix your ship." There was a problem with the ship. No one could fix it. They called in all these
Mhm.
mechanics. They couldn't fix it. And they called this old guy, and he came in and he went into the ship and he took a hammer out and he went bunk in one spot and it fixed the ship. True story. Fixed what they were looking to fix. I don't know exactly what it was. That doesn't really matter for this. And he said that'll be $10,000. And they said, well, it only took you 40 minutes. He goes, yes, but I have 30 years of experience and you're paying for all that time that I knew what the problem
Mhm.
was. And so, because of that, his 40 minutes of labor is worth more than all the other mechanics combined because he knew what the problem was because of his experience. And it saved them a ton. He's like, well, I mean, I fixed it and no one else
Mhm.
could. And so, while yes, life value is the same, and that we are all created equal. You know, we're talking about the Constitution in a minute. Like we're all created equal, but the output that we have, or that we garner, or that we put the effort into making, we all know we all use that to our advantage, even if we don't think about it. We wouldn't have had the time to stop and go to the Super Bowl because we'd be farming, but we take for granted that on my way to watch the Super Bowl with a friend, I can stop and pick up food with dollars
Mhm.
that cuts my time down, so I'm not having to
Right.
farm. And
Yeah,
so,
and there's a lot of like there's no arguing that the potential and well and the other thing is the potential demand for those hours, right? Like that guy, the demand for him might be a lot higher for his services than someone that maybe provides dog walking services. But maybe not. There's a lot of cases where somebody may really um want to uh provide like I think of like a retired person, right? Like they're
mm,
like, hey, I don't want to have a full-time job, I don't really want to pay for this, but I'm really good at doing taxes, so hey, I'll do taxes for you
yeah,
for an hour and you mow my lawn for an hour. It's like it seems like a very cool concept, and maybe I think potentially could
mm,
become kind of like the Uber of
yeah, I
services.
could see it being that, but I think what's gonna happen is that it'll be what everyone else does now. It'll be like, well, doing taxes would normally cost $400 for the typical person. I'm just throwing out a number.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what
Yeah.
it costs. And so an hour of doing that is more valuable than an hour of mowing the lawn. So you mow my lawn 4 times for 4 hours and I'll
it
do your
could
taxes.
it could
So
do
it
that.
just
Yeah.
it comes out to that, and there is no money exchange. I totally get it. I think a lot of people are already doing this. Maybe an app would make it easier.
Right.
It seems to me it's kind of like there's a couple different agencies out there that do like impromptu work online that people are good at these skills. You can pay them for a certain amount. You're actually just paying them for the job usually. It's not the
Well,
time. It's like
there's
however long it takes, they
exactly.
do it.
And there's a lot of services like this, like TaskRabbit, that you can like do like
That's one.
handyman things. But I haven't seen many things where it's like you're orchestrating
A trade.
like a trade based on time, not on currency. And I think that if you have something based on a trade or time, um, I think it's an opportunity to capture a market. Now the question is though, how does
How does that app make
this
money?
how does that
Because
app
if
make
there's
money, right?
yeah,
And
if there's no money changing hands.
and probably it's data collection some way, and it's probably also ads. But I mean, I wouldn't care if I had to watch a 5-second ad like YouTube, right? Like I don't care. Okay, whatever. A 5-second ad and then I can skip it. And then I
Yeah.
get these resources around me. So I think it's kind of a fun concept.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I don't think anyone's. I mean, maybe people have where they just do it on. A lot of times, probably it's message boards and stuff like that. People are doing it
Yeah.
manually, just kind of like Craigslist was. You know,
Right.
it was free. There's no like fee that you pay, and it was just this rudimentary website. And now a lot of people have spun off from that,
Mm-hmm.
and there are certain
Yeah.
ways that they make money and certain ways that they don't. So maybe to advertise or have an account on there, you're paying a certain amount to
Mm-hmm.
do it, and that's what funds it. I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
a cool idea. I do think there at 1 hour does not equal 1 hour. Although I would agree with you on people's value in as a human
Right.
being, but I think that's different than the work that they provide.
But I also think that they'll decide, right? They can decide, hey, I'm already financially set. My 1 hour
Oh yeah. Yeah.
is worth
But
this guy to
that's
mow my lawn, even though if it's 1 hour, like it's not always about fiat value. Sometimes
yeah.
it's about time and how much time you have.
Yeah, it could be convenience too. But again, that's free
Convenience, yeah.
market, right? So
That's free market, baby. I love it. Okay.
so
Um, so yeah, we can go in this last little topic here.
okay.
I don't need to do my last one. What did you had some thoughts and some interesting perspectives on the
Yeah, so
14th Amendment,
we already did kind of talk about your last topic a little bit.
the 5G? Yeah,
The
yeah,
5G
kind of.
stuff, yeah. So here's what I was thinking this week. So we had this. It came down. I was it the 24th? I think it was and we had some leaks, which we don't need to talk about that at all. I think we actually did, like where it probably shouldn't have leaked and came out about this whole Roe v. Wade case. So I was like, you know what? I wasn't alive then. I don't think a lot of people were, but I think a lot of us in our age group were not. We weren't around for when Roe v. Wade went through, which
Hmm.
I did like very small amount of reading about that because I cared more about what they used to arrive at that decision. So, in a very, very small nutshell, Roe v. Wade was a lady that wanted to have an abortion. And we're not going to talk about the whether we agree or don't agree with that. We've had that discussion before.
Hmm.
But I wanted to talk about this in the light of things that I've been hearing, because things that concern me are when people say, my constitutional amendment was infringed upon, it was taken away, or my constitutional right. And a lot of people are saying our constitutional right to abortion was lost today. And I wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit. So, this lady in Texas wanted to have an abortion. I think she had a bunch of kids. She didn't want another one. And so they went to this case and they argued that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution gave her the right to be able to do that in Texas, where at the time it was illegal to go and have an abortion. So I was like, well, amendments are easy to look up. We could look it up
Hmm.
and see even what spot that they are pulling that from. So I did, and I'm like, okay, so it comes from Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, and it says this. It's very short, but I'm kind of curious your thoughts, like,
Mm.
because mine were the same, I'm sure. I'll read it and then I'll see what you think. It said, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States of the state wherein they reside. So this was written basically to give slaves at the time, to give them equal rights. That's
Okay.
why this was originally
Equal
put in place.
protection,
Uh-huh.
equal
So
process
no
of
state
law.
shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. This is where Roe v. Wade was argued. And so they argued that in this, because of privacy, that abortion could not be ruled against in states. So they were saying that federally, no state can make a law that makes abortions illegal. Now they went on to give some stipulations originally, and they altered some of those. And those stipulations were around like what trimester, how far into it, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to go into the detail of that, but basically it was, first trimester up to 12 weeks gives a woman absolute right. Second trimester allows the government to regulate it. The third
Hmm.
trimester, so it gave some a little bit of direction, but these were all based on this what's called the right to privacy. So then I thought, what other cases have been argued for this that are a good comparison? Now, shockingly, with the 14th Amendment, which I do agree there's some right to privacy. Although looking at it, I think that we could probably draw some lines of right to privacy with some issues this last couple of years as well, where there was mandates and stuff like that. If you're going to pull it out for that and some other things, it probably applies in that case. But the other case that was interesting was in Connecticut. It was some person's name I can't recall, versus Connecticut, that Connecticut made it illegal. Get this. They wrote a law, and it was on the books, that nobody could use contraception in all of Connecticut, including married people.
What?
Yes.
This was pre-Roe v. Wade, or
Yeah.
post?
I think it came afterwards, but this is another one that was argued on this privacy thing. Now, their argument was stronger, in my opinion, because if it's based on privacy, this is where I think if you're for this, there should have been rules and laws around this prior to this, because this was, in my mind, the Roe v. Wade thing is such a stretch to add to this that someone should have, if they really were convicted in this, should have written other legislation to cover this, because it was going to be overturned if somebody looked at it and said, this doesn't apply. Because the way that it applied for this other case was that the state would have to invade the privacy of a married couple in their intimate time to make sure that they were following the law. And so they said this law infringes upon privacy, because in order to
That's complicated.
Basically, like, enforce this law, you would have to invade privacy to do so. So they overturned it using the 14th Amendment. They said, no, you cannot do this. You must remove this law. And they removed the contraception law in Connecticut, which at the time, honestly, all the legislators are like, yeah, we want to remove this. But because it went to the Supreme Court, it solidified
But how did
and they
it
were able
get
to remove it.
even become a law, though? Like
They voted on it. It went to legislation.
So
it
the
became a law.
people wanted to, the people of that state wanted to illegalize birth control.
At some point, there was enough people that voted for this law in Connecticut to put this into law. And then somebody said, this is unconstitutional, and took it to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, this is unconstitutional because it violates privacy. So this is what they used. Actually, this was prior to, I was thinking my years are off. So this was prior by quite a bit to Roe v. Wade. So Roe v. Wade used the same thing and said, well, because of our right to privacy, we can do this. But that's not the case, at least in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong. And again, I'm not arguing. I think people know my opinion. They know your opinion. We've talked about this before. But when it comes down to actual constitutional rights, the comparison that I've seen is people go, well, our constitutional right was removed, so you can't have your guns anymore. Like, well, but that's an actual amendment. We have to talk about that because it actually is written in an amendment. This was just based on privacy. It never was written, you can have an abortion, Amendment 28. Right.
I guess I have a hard time understanding the connection between privacy. I'm having a hard time even understanding the connection between the privacy argument for the birth control.
It's because to enforce it, they would have to be in the room with you to make sure you put it on.
So, but are rules based on how they can be enforced?
Some, yeah. So like that's where we have an issue now, and this could, no matter what side you fall on the gun argument, when they did the gun safety bill, which didn't really change a lot, except for it added red flag laws, which means if you think I'm a danger, you can report me to the police, and then the police, without even knowing anything, can come into my home to make sure I don't have guns. So that's an invasion of privacy. In my mind, that would fall under the 14th Amendment, because it was like, well, just because Curtis said so doesn't mean that we should be able to go and break a bunch of other constitutional rights to just walk into someone's home because someone thinks there might be an issue. So kind of a Minority Report thing, right? Like I'm going to catch you before you do it. That's an invasion of privacy. So the invasion of privacy with the contraception came into play because in order to enforce it, someone would have to walk into the bedroom and go, you didn't do it. And then enforce the law. So with this, because you have to go to a doctor as a licensed practitioner, all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
it's so loose that if somebody, and I've heard like you and I have passed back and forth like some videos of Bill Maher.
Mhm. Yeah.
He said too, which is weird. It's a weird world where I would agree with a lot of things the guy's saying right now. He said, like, if you really thought this through, we should have done legislation to make this happen, because it's not the role of the Supreme Court to decide these things. They're to decide, you know, does this fall within this purview? But I think this was a really, really loose thing. And if it's something, whether it be this or any other issue, if you really feel like it's a right or something that's going to be infringed upon, don't just rely on case law to keep it in place.
Mhm.
You've had what, 30 years to write legislation to pass to put it into
Constitutional. Is that
law.
what you're saying?
Not even constitutional, just make it a law. Like, so,
Mhm.
and I think that's where we've had this discussion before too, is like our system has gotten to the point where people get so frustrated or impatient that they just use executive orders. We see that in our state, we see it in a lot of other states. And then as soon as the rulers change,
Right.
they
Then
just
the laws
wipe it
change.
out. And so that it's this yo-yo effect instead of
True.
going through our representatives. So in this case, what they did was not. So a lot of people are also saying like, oh, they all of a sudden made this illegal. Well, no, that's not the case either. They just said it's up to the states. Now, I
It
would
wasn't
argue
federally protected
it
essentially
wasn't federally protected anymore,
anymore.
but a lot of states had on the books laws that were triggered
Right.
if this ever got overturned. And so there is a lot of states where now it's not
So I
legal.
think one thing that is concerning for people with this concept is because it allowed for a certain degree of federal protection, whether the abortion is medically necessary cases, right?
Right.
Like there's the states will have to now decide what they feel like are appropriate and
Yeah.
what they feel
Which,
like are allowed for
yeah.
abortion.
Which
And
is
no,
kind of how our country
well,
works.
now, well, kind of, but not always, right? Like if you were to, and I know you brought this up earlier, if you were to look at like gun laws,
Right.
there's certain states that would allow gun privileges, and some states that wouldn't allow gun privileges, right?
Yes.
But because it's federally uh, amended, it's federally regulated to a degree, right?
Right.
And so
There's certain protections,
there's
and
certain protections, right?
those get argued. And that's my
And
point,
those get
is
argued. But
it has its own amendment.
what I have reservation with is I do think there should be some federal protections with the right to whether whether it's the concept of abortion, whether it's the concept of birth control, whether it's what qualifies as abortion. I think there should be some federal oversight to a degree if there's an extremely radical movement with fluctuations of political swings within a state that could
Yeah.
change over a period of time.
I
So
don't I don't I don't disagree with you. I just
yeah.
think this was so loosely held.
Mhm.
Looking at it, everyone knew
The legal precedence wasn't very strong
the
for
legal
it.
precedence was awful for it.
Yeah.
And so instead of using that case as a launching pad, and again, I'm not just applying this to this. I'm saying if you have a cause that you want, whatever that might be. So like, for instance, someone had a cause when it came to writing this 14th Amendment. Their cause
Mhm.
was to remove the 3/5 of a human, to make every person equal, to give equal voting rights to every person, no matter their nationality, ethnicity, to free people and make them equal, right? Whether or
Mhm.
not and there's some bad apples, right, that still don't play by those rules, and we should weed them out, right? But that was written with conviction for that reason, because someone said, well, there's a problem,
Yeah.
and this is my cause, and this is what I'm doing. And I think that when it comes to these types of things, whether it be, I think a big one right now is medical freedom. Like
Mhm.
it's not written in there. We need
Well,
to
and that's
talk
what
about it.
people would consider, abortions potentially would fall
They
under
would,
medical freedom, right?
it potentially could. And I
Right.
think that it could fall under a lot of things. Like, you get to choose what medical procedures you
Mhm.
are forced to do or not do, and
Right.
that nobody can ask about that. Because if it falls under the Privacy Act, it
Because that would fall under
means
privacy to a degree then,
exactly.
right?
So yeah, so then it would be medical privacy and
So that
medical
would be the 14th
anonymity.
Amendment then?
No, no, I'm saying that's loose. I wouldn't even like that. So for instance, like, if
Was
we
14th
wanted,
privacy?
It's part of it.
Part of it, yeah.
It's loosely in there. And
Right.
that's the thing, is it's saying no law can infringe upon da 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 da. So
Hmm.
that is, it's basically saying you can't create a law that would breach that privacy and that
So what I
equality.
foresee as a prediction, then at some point there will be a health care amendment,
I've been
right?
saying this for the last 2 years. Like, we need, so there were some things that were decided by the Supreme Court saying, no, the mandates are not, the mandate for, the C-19 thing, right,
Hmm.
are not constitutionally correct. You can't just force someone to do it. That's what they've ruled. That's what they've said.
Hmm.
But I do think I'm not happy with that. Like, because
There
I
needs to
think
be
there
some
needs to be a
clarification.
clarification and a medical privacy that's held. And again, like I said, I'm not arguing either way on this, but when people say like this infringed my constitutional right, like, I'm sorry, I would love to find something in there that points to that, but it's not there. That it's not written in specifically. So if someone says like, I have the constitutional right to drive a car, well, you just don't. Like, that's never been written in there.
Hmm.
You have the constitutional right to travel and to do business, but you don't have the right to have a driver's license.
Yeah, the ground, the foundation for this was kind of um,
It was
well,
shaky.
it was shaky, right? But it will be, I think, a potential launching point in the future for additional amendments, I would wager. And not just for this topic, but right, we've seen so many topics, from birth
Yes.
control, from abortion, from vaccines, from medical procedures, like you're saying, from gender identification, from
Mm-hmm.
all these things. I think we'll see something that maybe not address every topic specifically, but will have an overarching rights to be
Yeah,
addressed within
I
those.
do. I think
Yeah,
I've said, and I know you
it'll
and I've had
happen.
this conversation offline, is that I think that we're headed into a time where we're going to see some of the first amendments in quite a while. As we were looking up, it was the 27th Amendment was
Right.
the last amendment. And when was that
Fascinating.
done?
Yeah. So the last was 1990. Last hold on a second. I had it. 1990 something. Last constitutional amendment was 1992. It was the
Mhm.
27th Amendment. And the 27th Amendment is, it required any change to the rate of, yeah. So any change to the rate of compensation for members of US Congress to take effect only after the subsequent election in the House of Representatives.
Okay.
So
All
basically, you
right.
can't increase your pay while you're in Congress,
Right.
which
That
I
which is
agree with.
good.
Yeah.
Which is, it's also interesting that a lot of the 14th Amendment deals with how people are able to take office. So we have the whole
Hmm.
January 6th commission right now. Um, what they're trying to do with that, if people are confused as to what they're doing, they're trying to make it so that a certain individual cannot run again if they're found to be an insurrectionist, because in the 14th Amendment also resides the text of, if you, and the reason why it's in the 14th Amendment also goes back to why the first section of the 14th Amendment was written. It was written to give equality to those of different ethnicity and backgrounds and free slaves. And also, it was providing a way to restrict those from the South that had been insurrectionists from holding office unless 2/3 of the Senate agreed.
Hmm.
So it's all, that whole 14th Amendment all deals with equal rights, and it all deals with making sure that the debts that they owed were not taken on by us and all that kind of flip
Hmm.
flop and stuff like that. So it's like, that's where so that's why I brought up the case of the contraception, because I think it is a clear, like, in order to enforce that, you'd have to be with the couple, right? So
Well, and
that
that's
does
why
violate,
that's why it'll be
it does
interesting to
violate
see with
privacy
states.
because there's no doctor involved, right? So with the states, I think they get around the privacy issue, and I understand why they overturned it, because the privacy, it isn't on the person, it's on the practitioner. So there are certain things, I'm sure you know this in the health,
Hmm.
you can't do. You're
Hmm.
restricted, and it has nothing to do with you saying the privacy of your patient. It's just like, no, I can't do that.
Well, yeah, I'm
Like,
not certified, or I'm not.
so
Yeah, my
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And so I understand why this was overturned. It was very, very loose. And people, if this is your, you know, that your stance to be on, it was very loosely held. And if you thought it wasn't, then someone lied to you. And to understand this, you kind of have to dig in. And this is just scratch the surface. Like Jordan got a curious bone and was like looking through the text, because I had a hard time finding for a lot of the cases that were decided in this. But the contraception one, once I realized what it was saying, I was like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. Like this would give them basically red flag laws to like walk in and make sure that you wrapped up. Like,
Yeah, that's
for goodness,
fascinating. Well, guys, I'm glad we educated you all on some interesting topics today. Non-controversial topics, to say the least. Oh man.
Well, we
Just
didn't talk about the
kidding.
controversial part. We just talked about like what's the law,
Yeah,
like
interesting.
why is it overturned?
Interesting.
Why? And it's good to know, because like if there's something that you hold as important, then you can look at what we need, what this points to, and I think is a good learning opportunity for anyone, no matter where they're at, is that your representation matters. There was an episode or a monologue of Bill Maher that I listened to actually last night, where he said the Johnny Depp case has enlightened us to one thing, and that is that your representation matters. And we have representation as people. And what we need to look at is our representatives, or our lawyers in this case, are our House representatives and senators that we elect. And are they representing you well? And if they're not writing the laws or standing up for the laws that you believe in, you would fire that lawyer. So you need to find a different representative. And good representation matters. And it was an interesting correlation between the two, that yeah, our representation matters. That's what gets it. We don't normally get to vote on these things. What we do get to do is vote on the people that will do this. And will they do the hard work to pass legislation and not just rely on something like this? And it could be anything that you might deem important for you and for the future that we're building for our kids.
Well, that brings into a whole topic of voting based on majority or not to, but yeah, it's a different topic. So
It would still have to be legislation, though. That's the thing.
right,
It
it would
still
still have
has
to
to
be.
go through that
But
legislative
if you have a
process.
majority
Mhm.
votes, then there could be some. Not everybody could be even close to represented, but that's a different concept, different topic.
Yeah, but that's where like your house, it gets boring, because and so that's where I get it. I get it. People are like, well, whatever. But we had a house district change in our area. We have a new house seat that's an addition in Oregon that represents a more like unique area to where we're at, and that matters. It
Yeah.
matters because those are the people that will go out and represent, hopefully, what a majority of our area does, and does that tough work to write that law and to push it and to be on those committees and do the tough work, because we don't get to do that. We don't get to write the laws that we vote on. We want them, but we need those representatives to do so.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, guys, we got
So
some TILs. I actually kind of went a little crazy and got 4
I was
TILs. So
very much noticing that.
I'll
So
go first. Today,
and second and third.
and second and third. Today I learned that Florida has almost 8,500 miles of shoreline, which, if made into a straight line, would be approximately 1/3 the circumference of the Earth. So lots of shoreline on that good old state of Florida, which I've never been to.
I'm down to one now.
Oh, no way. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
What's funny is
You can
I
read some of
checked
mine.
those.
Read some of mine.
I will.
Okay.
Today I learned that the United States has offered to purchase Greenland from Denmark twice. Once in 1946 and again in 2019, due to its strategic location in the Arctic. The U.S. also occupied the island during World War II from 1940 to 45 after the fall of Denmark and constructed their Thule airline base.
That's cool. Thule. Yeah.
Thule.
Yeah,
Thule,
that's really
Thule.
cool. I wish we owned Greenland. That'd be fantastic.
It's
Come
mostly
on.
ice, isn't it?
I've never been there. I think you're right, though. I think you're
Yeah,
right.
they named it Greenland so people would want to go there.
Right.
And they named Iceland that so nobody would want to go there.
Today I learned that a snail's mouth is no larger than the head of a pin, but it can have over 25,000 teeth. How they counted all those teeth in the size of a head of a pin, I'm not sure, but That's incredible.
Same guy that discounted those teeth found that bacteria.
Yeah, probably. Good point. Touche.
Oh, I'm not made to read your last one.
Yeah, read the last one.
Today I learned, literally, just now, the
Mhm.
author of Bambi was an avid hunter.
Hmm.
That heartless bastard.
That son of a bitch. All right, guys. Well, thank you for logging in, tuning in, giving us your thoughts. We appreciate y'all. Hope you stay cool on this hot day in Oregon. We're at 90, I think 95 today, maybe, or something like that.
I don't know. I
We'll
have air
we'll
conditioning.
we'll see where that goes. Hopefully not too much higher. And I think this is like the hottest day of the month. So
That's not
hope
gonna. That's the bar's not set high, so
that's true. That's
yeah.
true.
We
All right,
we got no
guys.
spring this year. We got
We had
winter
no spring.
and then immediately summer.
It was horrible.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, you stay
So
classy. Stay safe on the 4th of July.
don't blow your fingers off.
Don't blow your fingers off. And have fun though. Have fun. Like relax, get a couple drinks if that's what you do. Hang out with fam, have a good barbecue. Just kind of take care of yourself and fam and enjoy it, you know? Live life.
Go read the Constitution.
Go
It's
read some Constitution. Have a blast. Don't worry about the craziness in the world. Just live and let live. Enjoy it.
it's a
See
good
you
day for
guys.
it. All right.
Peace
See you.
out.